Hello, I'm MegaNova, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit interesting. We so a couple weeks ago, I made a video where I criticized Pedantic Romantic on his video about Goblin Slayer, and now this guy here, NECRO XIII. He made a video. Yeah, this is getting a bit meta. I'm doing a reaction video, or I'm not sure this is a reaction video, but I'm doing a video on a guy who's doing a video on a video. Yes. On a guy who's doing a video about an anime. Gotta get all the levels in there. So this is gonna be interesting, I guess. Yeah, I'm just gonna do as I did with Pedantic Romantic, just have the video run fully, and I'll pause it whenever I feel like I have something to interject. But the funny part is here, this is a guy criticizing a guy for criticizing Goblin Slayer, and I actually don't agree with a whole lot of stuff said by the guy here. You'll see why when we get into this.
Alright, fine. Since you guys wanted a video about Mother's Basement and his retarded video about Goblin Slayer.
Also, I guess it's an important point to note. I have already watched Mother's Basement's video on Goblin Slayer, and I thought it was okay. I guess I should give my own opinion on the video he's talking about to begin with. So I watched that when it came out, and I thought it was okay. Like, I still don't completely agree with him. Like, I personally still think the rape scene in the first episode of Goblin Slayer did its job in terms of making you hate the goblins, and I didn't feel like it was cheap. I feel like it did it well. I guess that's just my opinion, but ultimately, that's what all of this comes down to. What is your opinion on this thing? But at least, as opposed to Pedantic Romantic, Mother's Basement actually presented his points in a concise and fair way. My main problem with Pedantic Romantic was just how fucking hostile she was. In how just, if you like this, then you're probably a hypocritical fascist or whatever it was. It was something like that. And that's just, it's a bit too hostile. It's not a very good way to speak to your audience if you potentially have people in your audience who likes it. You're gonna alienate all of them, like me. So at least with Mother's Basement, he was like, well, I waited he waited a little bit so he could watch a bit more of the anime to see if the more episodes of the anime did it well. And he read further on in the light novel and in the manga to see how it did it there. And that also becomes a point in this video later, where Necro also says some stuff that I'm not entirely in agreement with, but we'll get to that.
I guess I can spare a couple of minutes and just go over it. I don't see why we can't at this point, since it's technically part 3 of this fucking universe.
This video discusses sexual violence in media in a way that requires showing certain explicit scenes. While I'm going to try to keep that to a minimum and put warnings in front of the worst of it, and I'll provide plenty of eye bleach in the form of cute animals between all of that, be aware that some of what you're about to see may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Much like the community that you foster, you really want to keep everything very straight-laced by not including something that has already been seen by the masses. Something that needs to be shown to people so that way it can give you context to the story. But instead you decided to give these shitty warning labels, the same one that your corporate overlords over at Crunchyroll have given you.
Yes, he's showing the warning labels because he knows that those scenes can be upsetting to people. I'm not gonna deny that. Like, I am very well aware that those kinds of scenes can be upsetting to some people. For whatever reason. Maybe they've experienced it themselves. Maybe they just don't like the thought of those things. I don't see what the problem is with providing a content warning. Like, as you're gonna see in the video, or actually you don't see it because this guy cuts that out, he does still show the scene. He still explains it. He explains why he doesn't think that it works, while showing the actual scene. But he just gives a warning first. Like, sometimes I'm thinking some of these people didn't actually watch the video before they made a video on it themselves, which in cases like this can be a real problem. Like, if it's just a reaction video, okay, that's fine. But if you're trying to come off as being like you're trying to be critical of a certain video, you should probably come off as you've actually watched the video and actually had a bit of thought of what was going on. Like, I mean, I can't say I'm much better. I've only watched this video once, but still, at least I did the minimum.
That's not the way that I wanted to lead into a discussion of Goblin Slayer. I'm pretty sure that content warning alone is going to invalidate my opinion for at least some of the show's biggest fans.
Some of the show's biggest fans. I think even ones that don't like this show will probably see this video and think that you're a little off the rails.
No, I'm a pretty big fan of the series. I haven't watched the latest episode. I'll watch that after I've done this video, but yeah, no, I'm actually okay with Mother Spaceman's video here.
First impressions are everything, and I wish that I could be making a different one. I also wish that Goblin Slayer didn't need to have a content warning in front of it on Crunchyroll. I wish that I could be making a video about fun, creative D&D kills, or the psychology of an obsessive anti-hero protagonist, or the potential for a resurgence of dark fantasy that this show, along with I
mean, now I know I'm just reacting to Mother Spaceman's video here, but I mean, you could still make videos on those things later. Just because you made one video on Goblin Slayer doesn't mean you can't make more. Like, you've made several videos on One Punch Man and My Hero Academia.
Overlord and ReZero is facilitating, and yet here we are.
You're right. Here we are talking about Goblin Slayer weeks after the first episode premiered, so that way you can cash in on a little bit more of that controversy that...
No, the controversy was mostly up during the period between the first and the second episode. The controversy has actually kind of died down now. People don't care as much anymore. So, no, the point he's making here, and is gonna elaborate a bit more on now, it's kind of invalid because the hype really has kind of died down and people has kind of stopped caring at this point.
That you're trying to stir. That's what I don't understand about this entire Goblin Slayer thing.
And as Mother Spaceman, or I'll just say Jeff. His name is Jeff. So, as Jeff will also mention later, it was to see more of the episodes when they came out. So he had a bit more frame of reference as to if the show actually did get better with time.
As I made a video responding to Pedantic Romantic, I don't have to, hit really low cues and say that it's like somebody. I'm not afraid to call out people that I've already made videos on.
Yeah, me neither.
But the thing is that you guys are going on this noble crusade to make sure that people don't look at this show in a very positive light. You're going out of your way to make this look as though it's...
Here the problem is, he's basing all of his accusations here on what Jeff said early on. And completely discounting the possibility that maybe a person can change their mind over time. No. Once you've said one thing, that is what you think for the rest of your life. Nobody ever changes their opinions on anything ever, right?
It's not anywhere close to a semblance of a good show, which I don't understand.
That's also a bad point, because Jeff will go on to say that it's actually not a bad show. It just had a bad start, in his opinion. I still don't think the first episode is as bad as many people say, including Mother's Basement here. But I still agree more with him than I do with Necro here. He's being entirely too cynical for my liking, honestly.
Because first impressions are everything, and for a lot of people, myself included, Goblin Slayer left an awful one.
No, I think most of the people that saw it liked it.
Again, here we have a completely other problem. The problem with the people you surround yourself with. The people you talk to. Because this guy talks more to people who did like the first episode. His view is that, most people actually did like it. But because the people Jeff surrounds himself with mostly disliked it, or at least a lot of them didn't like it, he, of course, has the opposite view. The problem is, neither of them seem to be able to think, maybe there are people that I'm not, related to or haven't seen give their opinions on it that actually liked or disliked it or whatever. Or were entirely indifferent to it. But again, people who are indifferent to it mostly don't comment on it, so we don't really get to see their opinions on it. So, and actually I will give props to Jeff again here, because he only said a lot, where he says most people. There's a very big difference in that terminology. But I guess I can talk more about that at some other point. I don't want to make this video go on for 1.5 hours.
I think that you're just being a little pretentious.
On watching the...
I'm not sure that's the right usage of pretentious.
first episode, I said the series was repugnant and edgy and felt like it was written by a 14-year-old, and I regret that tweet. Having read the manga and light novel and seen a few more episodes, I think it's unfair to the work as a whole and to the series writer.
No, that's not what happened.
Okay, so Necro's gonna go on now to embarrass himself a bit more with what he says here. Because now he's gonna be mentioning, oh, but you made that tweet. And after you made that tweet, you went on to reinforce your point in later tweets on the same day. Which is kind of negated by the fact that Jeff mentions he has changed his opinion after having read the light novel and the manga, and watched more episodes. Because he hadn't done that when he made those other tweets later. So that's a moot point. You can't use that against him in this context.
What happened was people were telling you to go read the manga and the source material.
I mean, sure, there were most likely people who told him to do that, but I don't see what the problem is here. He still obviously did it.
Because you made a very awful tweet. You had made a super hot take without ever realizing how retarded that really was. That's how Twitter works.
I mean, I sorta agree with Necro here. It was a bit of an early overreaction. And I did also criticize Jeff for that. I don't know if I did that publicly ever, but I was in agreement that he was a bit quick on the trigger there.
When you get
No pun intended.
ratioed. You said, well, Goblin Slayer is, well, and truly repugnant. Didn't think I'd see a show out-edge Magical Girl's sight, but this takes the cake.
Yes, you mentioned that tweet. I guess most people who would watch these kind of videos already know about this.
Feels like it was written by a 14-year-old. And then you went on to make some...
Okay, so I didn't actually read through these tweets. I think I read them on Twitter when they were posted, but I specifically made an effort to wait a few weeks in order to collect my thoughts and give the best arguments I could instead of going on with a hot take. Okay, so the tweets he mentions here later are actually after making the video. Right now I'm really feeling like, why bother taking my time when I can make a hot take in a week, get more views, and the same mouth breathers will pause the video after 5 seconds, leave the same inane comment regardless. Actually, I agree with Jeff on this one, because that's absolutely true. And as he said, he waited a few weeks to make a proper video. Like, his hot take was just a tweet. He ended up taking, a couple of weeks to make a proper video addressing his point. To make it a better point. Explain it better. I don't see the problem here. Well, I see the problem. The problem are the people commenting who are being idiots. And the worst thing is, there are people who are technically on my side, as in we're fans of Goblin Slayer, but they're going about it in the completely wrong way. And it always annoys me so much when people do that, because I'm like, I agree with you, but you're being an asshole. Why are you being an asshole? Stop it.
More statements generalizing your audience and the people in your comments, to then going on about how you're a straight white male.
I said it before, I'll say it again. As a straight white man who loves him some women objectifying edgy anime, I have never ever gotten a message half as vicious or awful from so-called SJWs as I have from the self-proclaimed facts over feelings center right. Well, that's mostly because the videos you make aren't as offensive to the SJWs, I guess. Like, you're generally trying to be pretty straight-laced about things. Holy shit. How long have I been recording? Why doesn't Streamlabs show how long I've been recording? That's dumb. Doesn't it show anywhere? Ugh. Oh well. That's not important, but I'm 3.5 minutes in and I've been recording for quite a while already.
And all this other stuff, but don't worry, at least you had some help down there.
I didn't do myself any favors, of course, but this is the most rabid fan base I've encountered by far. Rapid? Do you mean rabid? Because rapid is something completely different. That means you're going very fast. That's
I just think that when you're going about this entire Goblin Slayer video, it's like you're trying to force some kind of narrative that doesn't exist. Much like the other 2 videos in this somehow new series that I've made.
Goblin Slayer is a fun, pulpy, schlocky adventure about a plate-armored psycho bending the rules of the RPG world he lives in to massacre trash mobs in the most imaginative, efficient, and often entertaining ways possible.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that assessment. That's pretty much my own opinion on it. Like, I'm not going to go on saying that, oh, Goblin Slayer is some kind of new masterpiece or anything. Like, it's like a popcorn flick. It's like, you're not supposed to take it too seriously. You're here to watch the violence, and there's some good jokes here and there too. Like, it's not meant to be taken too seriously. Like, it's not like it's trying to say anything about the grand thing. Whatever. I can't find the words right now. But it's not trying to say anything big. Yeah.
It's a show that highlights the absurd creative potential of tabletop role-playing and marries it to the gleeful murder lust of games like Doom and Hitman.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, games that people actually play.
I hate the point he makes here. He makes the dumbest point right here. The problem is he's going off of the assumption still that Jeff hates all of Goblin Slayer, which he has at this point already made clear that he doesn't. He just doesn't like the first episode. So he's going on to say, you know, games that people actually liked and played. Yes, Jeff is not saying anything that would dispute that at all. He's just comparing them because it's a pretty good comparison. I mean, everybody has already made a lot of comparisons to fucking Doom, and saying that Goblin Slayer is basically the dark fantasy version of the Doom guy, which, yeah, like, basically they both suffer from PTSD, and if you just switch out the goblins with demons, then it's basically Doom, but in medieval times. Like, it's just dumb. Like, you really should have thought this point better through.
Games that are actually very well received from the people that play them. I know this may be hard for you to believe, but
No, it seems hard for you to understand that he doesn't hate all of Goblin Slayer. Only the first episode. And really only that one scene in that first episode.
Doom 2016 sold very well. It sold numerous amounts of copies,
Yes, you've made your point. Can we get on with it?
to say the very least.
Overall, it's not repugnant, but its first episode is.
See, he says it right there. So either Necro is completely ignoring that point, or I don't know. I really don't know. Either he's ignoring that point or he's just that stupid. I generally don't want to call people stupid because I don't believe that there are that many, you know, truly stupid people. But that's the only word I can find here. Unless he's just purposefully ignoring it. But then why would he show it in his video? Because he has been cutting in Mother's Basement's video. Like, I don't get it.
And that largely comes down to one awful, ill-conceived, poorly justified, and exploitative rape scene.
Like, here I think Jeff is overdoing it a little bit with how he portrays the rape scene to be.
That I think is as bad as, if not worse than, the infamously awful scene from the end of Sword Art's Fairy Dance arc.
Alright, we get it. You hate Sword Art Online, but that doesn't mean that this is the same thing. I don't know what it is about anime YouTubers and thinking that somehow a scene where nobody gets raped in Sword Art Online is somehow the same thing as someone actually getting raped in Goblin Slayer is. Like, how do you draw parallels between the two?
I think the parallels is just the feeling that the scene is giving you. Or how badly the story was told up until that point.
Alright, so just bear with me here, but in the clip that you showed from Sword Art Online, it looks like there's not been any clothes being ripped off. It doesn't show that anything is happening to Asuna as a whole, except that this guy is tormenting her. And may I remind you that this is in a virtual reality game. Nothing is actually happening to her body in real life. This is all a role-playing game. Now, in Goblin Slayer, those characters are actually there. They are the ones actually experiencing these things, and they actually show those things in a little less detail than the source material does, but it shows those things happening because I don't even know why I'm explaining this to you. You just don't fucking get it because you're an idiot.
Today, I'm going to lay out the problems with that scene's concept and execution and dig into the issues with the anime adaptation that created them. And because I know that not everyone agrees that the scene is a problem in the first place, I'm also going to try to explain why I think it's detrimental to the series overall.
How is it a detriment to the series if it is something that was shown to show you how brutal and savage that the goblins are?
That's not his point. Again, I don't know if this guy has actually watched the video before making this video, or if he's just either forgot what Jeff says later, or I don't know. Like, I'm getting so confused with this video. There's so many things wrong here.
See, when you bring up these arguments, do you know what you're saying? Or are you just trying to use big words because you think that it'll somehow strengthen that argument of yours?
Well, apparently you just don't get his point. And again, I don't actually necessarily fully agree with Mother's Basement, but if you're trying to debunk his points, you should have better points yourself.
So in case you don't know how Goblin Slayer starts, the series opens with a young priestess signing up to become an adventurer and joining a party of other newbies on a goblin killing quest as a healer. They go into the goblin's lair woefully unprepared and are quickly overwhelmed and then die, except for the priestess, who makes a swift retreat and is rescued by the titular hero Goblin Slayer at the last second, and the fighter, who is brutally beaten and raped. Because in this universe, that's how goblins reproduce. This is meant to show that goblins are dangerous and make us hate them as much as our heroes do.
Exactly, and at least in my opinion, I think it did that well.
Or at least understand why they need to be killed so badly.
Alright, well, with a few mishaps here and there, I think you got the basic summary of what Goblin Slayer is, or at least from the first episode is. And I think that we can go ahead and continue from here with a little bit of knowledge that we do have. I mean, pretty much everyone that's seen this video or seen yours has at least got exposure to the first episode in some fashion.
And it arguably does that, but the way it goes about doing it is cheap and exploitative.
What?
The scene makes us as an audience feel upset, but it doesn't do so by hurting a character that has made us care about, or cutting off a potentially interesting and fun storyline before it can begin, or doing any of the other things that well-written stories do to earn their readers' reactions.
Now,
I'm a bit mixed on this one, because on one hand, I do sorta agree with Jeff on this one. That, usually I also like my stories to have, like, you know, when something like that happens to a character, I would like some backstory. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I think the first episode maybe should have just given some, because as I understand it, I haven't read the manga personally, so I guess maybe I'm just not as enlightened, but whatever. Apparently in the manga, though from what I heard, the light novel doesn't actually give them any backstory. But the manga has like a 1 page for each of the characters that goes into their backstory. I guess the anime could have started with like 10 to 10 seconds or half a minute or whatever for each of the 4 characters. Like have the first 2 minutes just be each of those 4 characters seeing their backstory. I guess you could have done that and just cut a little bit here and there later on in the episode instead. I guess that's a thing they could have done, and that maybe would have done it, made it a little bit better. But I mean, they're still just gonna die like that anyways, or well, most of them. But yeah, I don't know. But I kind of agree with Jeff on this one, honestly.
There's a problem here, Mother's Basement, and I don't think you've quite realized it yet. You've read the manga, and you've read the light novel.
Here we come to one of my biggest problems with this entire video. But it doesn't actually really become a proper problem until like 10 minutes later into the video. But yeah. this point right here. He says, you've already read the manga, so you already know the context. Yeah, put a very, very, very big pin in that one.
Novel that this is based off of. So you already know the backstory to them, so that kind of makes this point null and void.
No, it does not. His point is, if you're an anime only, you wouldn't know that. You see? The problem is the anime is supposed to be watched on its own. The purpose of it is to get people who haven't read the manga or the light novel to get into the story. I mean, you even mentioned this later on. We'll get to that, but he mentions later on that the anime is usually supposed to just be an advertisement for the source material, which honestly I think is a fucking bullshit practice. And I hate it because so often we get these great anime that just never get a proper ending because go read the manga, fuckers! And I fucking hate that. But like, I'm still fucking waiting for a No Game No Life sequel. Like, we got that movie. I haven't watched the movie because it's not about the characters we got to know in the original series. And I don't care. I just want a continuation of that story. Please. But, yeah. No. But that's not even the worst part, because he contradicts himself in the worst way later on. I know, I'm probably gonna reiterate this when we get to that part, but later on, Necro says, oh, but we're only talking about the anime here. You can't bring the manga and light novel into this. But you just said, because you've read the manga and light novel, it shouldn't be a problem. It's maybe not a problem for him personally, but it would be a problem for anyone else who has only watched the goddamn anime. Oh, okay.
If you know the backstory to this character, or at least that she has a story and some kind of legacy, that she's a fighter because of her father, and that she wants to be the world's best, then at least you can get a little bit of what this character is about, and then when she's raped, you know to feel bad for her.
Also, yes, the anime kinda does provide some minimal, exposition for the characters. As in, the fighter mentions that, oh, the wizard, the witch, or whatever she is, she was at the top of her academy and had, like, a big potential and stuff. And the fighter, he was like, oh, I once chased a goblin off, and I want to be a dragon slayer once I become a better adventurer, blah, blah, blah. But we never really get anything on... Oh, wait, earlier I said 4 characters to get the backstory. I meant 3. 3, because, the priestess is the 4th. But we never really hear about the fighter's backstory, which Jeff explains here, so I'll let him do that for me.
All it does is take something from the real world that is already inherently upsetting and put it in front of us, saying, look at this, feel bad.
Oh my god. I knew that you were stupid, but just, what's the next part?
And it doesn't even do a good job of that, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Wait, so now the rape has to be good rape to you?
Yes, it has to be good rape. But the problem is that sentence is very out of context. It has to be well established. At least that's Mother Spaceman's point here. I still think it did its job as it was supposed to, but you have to, establish something, the story has to be have some better groundwork done before you do it. That's what good rape is, you know, that it has a point, it serves the story, which I think it does. Like, you know, it tells us that goblins should be hated and should just be eradicated, but
I don't understand your logic. If rape is inherently bad, which it is, then why are you saying that it has to show you a good kind of rape? Why does the rape have to be good in your eyes for it to actually be valid, or to make you hate the goblins even more? Do you know how retarded and daft that is?
no, you're being retarded and daft because you don't get his point.
This is... what?
That is, to put it nicely, really fucking lazy.
Much like the videos that you and I both make. Except...
At least you're self-aware enough to know that you make lazy videos. So do I, but you know. Also, Jeff really doesn't make lazy videos. Like, yes, sometimes he does. Like, this is technically a lazy video because he's just talking about the show. But at least, I mean, he did some research going into the video, so I wouldn't say it's not even lazy then. No, because he read the manga and light novel to be able to make a better video, to make a better point. You're just reacting to a video, so am I. Like, I'm well aware. But you shouldn't call Jeff's videos lazy.
except that my videos contain a little bit more self-awareness.
I would contend that.
It's the writing equivalent of a jump scare or of focusing the camera on a puddle of gore, a cheap tactic for getting a totally unearned reaction out of your audience. And while using shortcuts to move people early in a story when they're not inherently invested isn't a bad thing on its own, specifically using sexual violence, which...
Okay, so now you're gonna use puppies, so that...
Yeah, he mentioned that in his content warning at the start of the video, that he was gonna do that. So it seems weird for you to comment on it now. He already said he was gonna do that.
Wait, we don't have to look at the real part of Goblin Slayer because you don't like it? Jeez, you are falling way off of the deep end. I don't even know if we can call it that at this point.
Is both a hot button issue and a source of trauma for hundreds of thousands of people, is at best crass and tasteless. Because, frankly, there are plenty of other horrible real-world things that could elicit the same reaction without that baggage.
Ah, yes. Show me something worse, so that way I can actually feel bad about it. You know, let's forget about all the other shows that you watched and enjoyed, like Akame ga Kill, Berserk, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where a child gets raped by another man. Like, do you realize that you're really wanting...
Again... I know I'm talking for somebody else, but in all those cases, I'm pretty sure Jeff would explain to you why the rape in those shows were better established, and it was more earned what they did. Like, I know that's what he would say because that's just how it is. Like, while I am, as I have mentioned several times already in this video, of the opinion that Goblin Slayer's rape scene did it fine what it was trying to do, I'm not gonna say that it did it the best way that it could. It could be better, it could have done it better, but it did it fine. But you... Stop comparing other anime to it. Like, I know his point is, oh, he enjoyed those shows, but they had rape in it, so why doesn't he enjoy this? Again, they were better established in those shows.
In Goblin Slayer, to show you something not as violent as rape, but you wanted to show you rape in the good way, so that way you can actually feel invested for the characters.
Exactly! That's the point! I don't see why you have a problem with this.
I don't know how far you've read into JoJo, since apparently you tell people to skip parts, but you should really go ahead and do some research on some basic shows that show rape and glorify it, and especially the ones that are a little bit more explicit. And trust me, there's a lot of those out there. I know how much you really want to hate Goblin Slayer because it showed you the bad stuff, but that's like getting pissed off at hentai or Arrow.
Also, you really can't use hentai in this context, because hentai's sole purpose is to turn you on. Hentai's sole purpose is for you to masturbate to it. It's, for the most part, not supposed to have a compelling story. And I know he mentions Euphoria here in a little bit, but I mean, even though Euphoria has a much better told story than a lot of other hentai, it is still a hentai, and it's still supposed to get your rocks off. I mean, if you're into the stuff that goes on in that, because that's some pretty fucked up shit that goes on in Euphoria. I'm not going to be going into that here, but just trust me. That's some weird stuff going on in that, but, you know. I'm not here to judge. If that's what you're into, that's fine.
Anime, as they call it in Japan. I mean, let's just be real what they actually call it. But let's just call it hentai because we're all plebs here. In hentai, they show a lot worse stuff, especially in shows like Euphoria. And if you haven't seen Euphoria, then I just don't know what else you're...
And again, comparing a mainstream anime with hentai, it's apples and oranges.
Battery critical.
Oh, shit. I guess I should have recharged my headset before starting the video, but that's a bit too late now.
Charging battery.
We're too far in. We're at the point of no return. We've been there for a while, so we're halfway through this video, and I've been talking way too much. I'm gonna try to talk a bit less now, but that depends.
You're gonna really think of, because that show has heaps of rape.
If the goblins were to, say, shove their knives in a box of puppies, or stick their dicks in a box of puppies, we'd be equally disgusted with them, equally inclined to hate them.
No.
Yes and no. I still personally think that it's worse here. Because, and don't get me wrong, like, people who do animal cruelty, they can get fucked. Like, to the torture chamber with them. That's fine with me. But I also have that about rapists. I'm not a big fan of those, either. Like, I still think rape on a person is worse, because I still think that, you know, a human is more self-aware than an animal. Like, don't get me wrong, I know that animals can get traumatized, but I still think it's worse when it's done to a human.
No, I think you're missing the point. The rape is to show us how bad the goblins are.
Like, sexual assault on a human is worse than regular assault. Like, it traumatizes you more. Sexual assault on an animal is the same as if you did pretty much any kind of assault. Because animals don't attribute special feelings to sex the same way humans do. For them, it's just, sex is just to reproduce. I guess, except for dolphins, that I've heard are the only animals that do sex for pleasure as well, but that's besides the point. Majority of animals, to them, sex is purely just to reproduce. So I don't think they care. I don't think that's really a big deal in that case, I guess. But yeah, that's just... Whew.
If they killed a box of puppies and we never got to see the puppies, then we would never know.
Why would you assume that we wouldn't get to see the puppies? Like, he never mentioned anything, oh, it's just an enclosed box of puppies. He even shows a box of puppies on the screen as he's telling you this. So I guess we can assume that it's an open top box. So we would get to see them in that case.
Now, if we actually got to see the gore, then yeah, that's something different.
And it would have just as much of an impact on the rest of the story as killing off and traumatizing a pack of nameless prop characters.
Technically, everybody in Goblin Slayer is nameless. Name one character, and if you can't call them priestess...
I mean, I guess he kind of has a point here. But, actually, I know this is not really related to this video, but I have my own little theory as to why this is. I know, I have heard that the author has come out and said that actually the reason why no character has a proper name, why is Goblin Slayer is just called Goblin Slayer, Priestess is Priestess. His childhood friend is called Cowgirl because she lives on a cow farm. The girl at the guild is literally just called Guild Girl. The reason was because the author, he was just like, I've been using placeholder name this whole time, and I can't really come up with any proper names, so I'm just gonna keep doing it like that. But in my headcanon, it's because it reflects on Goblin Slayer's personality. He doesn't care about people insofar as to how they can help him kill more goblins. So he's like, oh, you're a priestess. That's the only thing I care about you. The fact that you're a priestess and you can use holy magic and I can use that to my advantage to kill more goblins. You're a mage. Well, I can use your abilities in other ways to kill goblins. You're an archer. So on. That's the only shit he cares about. And honestly, I think that's pretty interesting. Like, even if that's not the point of the author, you know, there's the whole thing with death of the author and how, you know, you make your own interpretation of whatever. And that's what I'm going off here. So, yeah.
You can't call him Goblin Slayer because that's what he is. They don't have names. So technically they're all nameless, you fucking idiot.
If you're...
Yes. But that's not his point. Like, you're basically saying something that should be a joke, but you're playing it straight. And that's just kind of weird. Like, it should just be a quick quip or joke that, oh, actually, none of them really have names. But instead of making a joke, you're making it completely serious. Like, you know what his point is by calling them nameless. Nameless isn't, in this context, literally nameless. It's just that you don't know anything about the characters.
You're going to devote significant time to sexual assault in a story, especially right at the start.
Oh my god, we're sexually assaulting the anime characters again. Do, like, a group of you guys get together and just say, wow, can I outdo how fucking stupid you are? No, wait, here. Hold this for me. Hold this beer. I think I can just outdo you a little bit more.
Oh,
you guys realize that these are cartoons on a screen.
That is not the point. The point is the way the story is told. He's not upset that an anime character was raped. That's not the point. The point is how rape is used as a narrative tool in this context. Like, it's not like, oh my god. Like, if he had come out and say, oh, we need to stop rape in anime because anime girls have rights too, It's like that. Then you could use that, but oh, you're making a straw man here, and the problem is, I'm technically on this guy's side, as in, I am a fan of Goblin Slayer. I like the show. I think it's a good show, but
drawings made by other people, and you're getting this upset about one scene from a first episode? It's a good thing you guys didn't read the manga. You see, I was going to give props to the anime man because he at least had the know-how to get in contact with the Goblin Slayer creator, and he interviewed him for a video. That video didn't get very many views, but at least he enjoyed it enough to get the creator and talk about it. But, you know, I had to take away those points because he was being a whiny bitch on Twitter talking about how no one watched the video. Way to put down your fan base there, bud.
You need to make sure that it's an essential
oh no, he complained about getting low views on a video. Yeah, I mean, if you're used to getting a certain amount of views, if you get less views, that means you get less money. And I mean, he has his own economy that he's, you know, built his life around. If you start to get less views, that means you get less money and his quality of life goes down. That's fully understandable. Come on.
component of that story, that it changes your characters, alters the future course of events, or at least lets you say something meaningful that you otherwise couldn't.
So you're saying that the priestess isn't more careful about the other characters as she lives in this universe?
Yeah, actually, I will agree with Necro on this point. Because in the bigger picture, as to the later story, the rape of the wizard girl serves to strengthen Priestess's character. Because, I mean, already at this point, she's seen some shit. That's why early in the third episode, you get used to it with the completely dead eyes scene. Because even though she's only been doing this for like a month or so with Goblin Slayer, they have been through some shit already. Like, of course, most of it has been off screen, but considering the very first adventure she goes on, that alone should, show how traumatizing this whole thing is gonna be.
I'm pretty sure it's a couple of episodes, it might be an episode or two after it, it's all running together for me, where a group of adventurers goes out to slay goblins, and she wants to go protect them and save them.
Yeah,
they come back unscathed, thankfully, but she wanted to go save them because of her past experience of just porcelain adventurers going out and not being prepared enough.
Yeah,
Are you
that's
fucking retarded?
Psychopath.
Again, try and calm it down with the baseless insults.
Offers an example of how this can be done right.
And yes, I know, I've been insulting to him as well. But it's kind of hard when he's being that insulting.
Its first episode also involves sexual violence. Specifically, the episode's villain kidnaps a woman named Shika Shimizu and starts doing every horrible thing he's ever imagined doing to her because the civil system has flagged him as a latent criminal and he figures his life is over anyway, so he may as well enjoy it.
Okay, but go ahead and get to the next part of your video.
The twist is, when our heroes kill him and rescue Chica, she's so traumatized and stressed out from what she's just been through that the civil system picks up on her mental instability and deems her a latent criminal as well. Meaning, right after they save her, the officers have to kill or at least arrest her.
I see what you're trying to get at here, that this scene of rape is better than the other one because we don't get to see this rape.
No! Are you willfully being ignorant? It's not because we don't see it. It's because of its narrative impact, or at least perceived narrative impact. It's
happening. Except that I don't think that there was any rape in this scene.
Also, I haven't watched Psycho-Pass yet. I know. Don't crucify me. I can't watch everything, but I'll get to it at some point, but I haven't watched it yet, so I can't say if this is what he says. He's gonna say that, oh, there's not actually any sexual violence going on. I don't know if that's actually true, so I can't speak to that, but yeah.
And having watched the first episode just now, so that way I could debunk this stupid-ass video of yours, I can clearly tell you with all confidence that she does not get raped. She does get beaten, quite a lot, and she does get tortured, but she doesn't get raped. That's the difference between Psycho-Pass and Goblin Slayer. And if you're trying to make correlations between the two, then I think you're going for a little bit of a stretch.
Actually, no. Because, again, I know I said earlier that sexual violence will be more traumatic than regular violence, but then again, that depends how harsh that regular violence is. Because, you know, getting raped or getting tortured over a long period, or over a longer period of time, I would still say that the torture over a longer period of time is worse, even if you don't get raped within that period. I would still say overall it ends up being a worse experience.
This whole plotline is meant to highlight the horrifying flaws in the civil system, how it encourages criminal activity and makes no effort to distinguish between unstable criminals and traumatized victims. And that message is amplified by showing Chica going through one of the worst kinds of trauma imaginable, making us entirely sympathetic to her plight.
Except that we don't see the scenes of her actually getting tortured.
We don't necessarily have to see the scene to get the point.
We hear screams and we see the cutaway, but we only see what happens before.
Also, technically, we don't really see the rape in Goblin Slayer as well. Like, we see, like, bits and pieces, but we don't see the actual thing going on. The closest we see is Wizard Girl's head to the ground bopping back and forth because of what is obviously going on in the back. But we don't see the actual goblin thrusting into her. So it's okay, well, it is still shown more in Goblin Slayer, but still.
And after. But we never see the during. Now, the same could be said for Goblin Slayer, but at this point, I think we already knew what was happening when they showed a little bit more context than what we got in Psycho-Pass.
Threatening a box of puppies.
Okay, that was me being an idiot then. I forgot that he mentioned that afterwards.
Or even subjecting Chica to a lesser crime would change the outcome and meaning of the story. So I think that using sexual assault as a plot point there is justified in a way that Goblin Slayer's use of it simply isn't. At least, not in the anime.
That's all we're discussing, Mother's Basement.
Here it is! Here is the thing that I mentioned earlier. Where he's gonna go on a bit of a tangent here, like, we're only talking about the anime. We're not talking about the manga or the visual novel. We're only talking about what's happened in the anime. But you mentioned earlier, and you're even gonna mention again, how because you already know the context of what happens to them in the manga, that means it shouldn't be a problem in the anime. But the problem is the anime doesn't explain that. Okay, I'm gonna try to calm down. Don't want to rage too much.
We're only discussing the anime, the thing that you have a problem with. I don't know if you really have caught on to how stupid you sound yet, but you're only talking about the anime. That's all we've been talking about for the past 16 minutes. We've been talking about how you just don't...
Actually, he has been mentioning both the manga and the light novel several times. So you can't even say that's all we've been talking about. Because we have been talking about both the manga and the light novel as well. So no. Not only talking about the anime. We're specifically talking about how the anime doesn't do the thing as well. But that's it.
Don't like the anime because it doesn't do this good rape scene perfect.
Again, he never said that he disliked the entire anime. Okay, I guess technically in his first tweet he did, but that was still only based off of one episode. He has watched more of it, and he said earlier, explicitly, the anime as a whole is not repugnant. He just doesn't like that one scene in that one episode. Just...
It needs to have a better rate. That's pretty much what this video boils down to,
No.
and I'm about over it already.
But both the light novel and the manga turn the faceless party of adventurers who accompany Priestess into actual, characters. In the light novel, before each of them dies,
yeah, here's the point where he starts describing what the backstory of them was.
narration shifts to their perspective, giving us a bit of insight into who they are and how they think. The mage is annoyed by Priestess's constant worrying, for instance, while the fighter is in love with the warrior and finds her...
Yeah, the whole thing with the fighter being in love with the warrior, we never get a sense of that in the anime. And I think we should have had that in the anime, in some way. Like, all we get is that she calls him an idiot and that he's, like, very abrasive. But we don't really get the point that she's supposed to be into him. So, yeah, I agree there.
herself heartbroken to watch him die. In the manga, each of them is given a one-page flashback where we learn that the warrior was a poor farm boy who picked up some big dreams listening to tales from other adventurers. The mage was a...
Like, we kind of get that point. Like, he does explain that. That, oh, when I was, when I was younger, I chased off a goblin from my village once. And that he wanted to be a dragon slayer. Like, that's fine. That's enough.
spellcasting prodigy destined for great things.
Yeah, they do explicitly say that in the anime, so we don't really necessarily need to see her flashback either. The only thing they dropped the ball on here was that the fighter was in love with the warrior. That's, or monk, because like he's technically the fighter, because in D&D they would be called the fighter.
And the fighter was the daughter of a martial arts master who wanted to honor her father's legacy by saving people.
Yeah, we don't get any of her backstory, so yeah.
Now, right now, since you have all of that right there, what is your qualm with this?
Here it is again. He brings up, oh, because you know the backstory, that makes it fine. No, it doesn't, because the anime should have explained it better. Or at least, that's Jeff's point. His point is, it should have been explained better. I still think, at least for the wizard and for the fighter, I thought both of those they had explained fine enough. The monk girl, yeah, hers could have been explained like at all. They didn't explain any of her backstory or the fact that she was in love with the fighter dude. I think they should have done that better. But other than that, the point he's gonna make here about, oh, you already know it, so it shouldn't be a problem. He doesn't get the point. He doesn't get the point that Jeff isn't complaining about himself, or well, technically he is, because he didn't know this going into it, because he hadn't read the manga or light novel going into it. He just watched the first episode of the anime. So he didn't understand that. He didn't know that. Now that he does, that doesn't mean that still isn't a problem for the anime. It's like, I'm a big Potterhead. So, there's a lot of things that I've read all the books, but when I watch the movies, I start to notice all the things that are missing in the movies. And yeah, sure, I know the context. I know why these things are as they are, but when they're not explained in the movie, that means that some people are going to be missing out on that. Like, maybe they can't read, so they can't read the book. Maybe they just have ADD and can't concentrate for long enough to actually get through a book. It could be whatever number of reasons. Or they just don't want to read the book. They prefer to just watch a movie. They're going to be missing out on a lot of stuff. And sure, yes, I know with movies, you have to cut out things because, I guess unless you're Game of Thrones, you can just put everything in there because, you know, you make a 10-hour TV show. But even they fucking cut out stuff. Or change things, so you can't even use that as an example. But still, he's not necessarily complaining about his personal experience. He's talking about how the anime would come off to someone who has only watched the anime and nothing else. How do you not get that point?
Exactly. Because you've just single-handedly laid out everything that destroys your argument.
No! That doesn't destroy his argument in the least! That is what strengthens his argument. The fact that it's better explained in the goddamn manga.
From 16 minutes when I started this video all the way up to now. Because if you're having an issue with these are faceless characters, but you've read the manga and you've read the light novel, and you know the stories of them, how does this make this worse for you? Because
it doesn't make it worse for him personally. It makes it worse for anyone who hasn't read the manga.
Now the scenes make sense. And to a lot of people, it will...
Actually, no. I can explain this in a better way. You shouldn't have to have read the manga in order to better understand the anime. That's bad storytelling. That's one of the things a lot of people are complaining about with World of Warcraft. The fact that a lot of the story isn't told in game. You have to go read the novels, or read the short stories, or read the comics. Like, a lot of those stories aren't told in game, and that's the problem, because sometimes some of those things are crucial plot points. So something will happen in the game, and you don't understand what the fuck is going on, because, oh, that character was killed in a book! Like, and then you sit there confused until you go do some research and find out, oh, that character was killed in a book, so that's why it's now dead in the game, and this is happening now. You shouldn't have to rely on other media in order to understand the current media you are enjoying. I mean, sometimes it's okay. It's not too bad. But the problem is, again, especially with the whole World of Warcraft thing, it's like those are some fairly long novels that you have to get through in order to then understand what is going on in the game. At least with something like Overwatch, well, I mean, it doesn't even have a story in-game. You can easily play the game and enjoy it without ever watching any of the videos related to it, because none of the story actually goes on in-game. All of the story goes on besides it. So there's actually fine. The fact that there aren't any story in the game, like, it's just like they just, yeah, you don't get the story in the game. You just play the game for the gameplay, and then you can go watch videos or read the comics to get the story there. That's fine. That's okay. But the problem is, when you present your game like World of Warcraft as being a very story-centered game, it starts being a problem when you have to go read a book in order to, understand what's going on. The same here. You shouldn't be expected to have already read the manga to watch an anime. The anime should be able to stand on its own.
Will not make sense, but that's because anime as a whole is supposed to be an advertisement.
No! Fuck off! You shouldn't perpetuate this practice. Anime in itself is not supposed to be an advertisement for a manga or a light novel. It's supposed to be an adaptation that should be able to stand on its fucking own. You should... And as I mentioned earlier, like, No Game, No Life, I really want a second season. It was a really fun and enjoyable show. I want to watch more of it. But I'd have to go and get the light novel, and I'm not a... But the problem is, I have ADHD. So I'm one of those people who suffer from, not being able to concentrate for long. Or, in my case, it's more like I need to have more of my senses stimulated in order to concentrate. So I need to be able to both hear and see stuff, and maybe read stuff at the same time, in order to really get it. If I only read something, I will very easily get distracted. That's why I have a problem reading books. Harry Potter is, for some reason, one of the only book series that has actually been able to hold my attention. Like, I've only gotten through half of the first Lord of the Rings books, because it didn't grab me as much. And I know, sacrilege, oh no, I enjoyed Harry Potter more than Lord of the Rings. Fucking sue me. I can't control what I enjoy more, okay? It's like sexuality. You don't control what sexuality you have. You just have it.
It's meant for you to go read the source material. That's why some shows don't ever get adapted. Some...
Yes, which is bullshit.
Manga series never come to be an anime because they'd rather you read the actual art. They'd rather you just read the manga. Actually read them, not skip parts.
It's as thin as character.
Yeah, that's probably a callback to his thing with the... Because Jeff made a video about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, because part 5 is airing right now, and he was like, oh, so here I'll get you up to speed to what has been happening in the 4 parts earlier, so you can just go into part 5. And I agree, you should just watch all of it, because all of it is pretty good. Okay, first part is sort of weak. I feel like that is generally agreed upon in most of the fan base, that the first part of JoJo's is a little bit weak. But the rest is excellent. Like, once you get to episode 11, which is where part 2 starts, that is where it, like, really takes off. But there are still good things in the first part that are fairly essential to know for viewing of the rest. Like, especially the whole thing with Dio, considering how much of a reoccurring character he is. So, yeah, I would say you should just watch all of it.
Characterization gets, but it's still characterization. It tells us who these characters are and who they could have been. In a different world with less rapey goblins, these characters could have been proper heroes in their own right. The warrior could have been Dragon Quest's Erdrick. But in this bleak world, that story is cut short before it could ever begin.
Hence the genre dark fantasy. I'm glad that we got to this point, Jeff.
This small bit of character building adds a tragic element that's not there in the anime and makes this scene upsetting for reasons other than just because the goblins did an inherently bad thing in front of us. Kumo Kagyu, the series author, does something to earn that reaction, and it's better than the nothing the anime gives us.
I really don't know how much longer I can deal with this.
Again, I'm split here, because I still think the anime does it well enough, and you do get... Yeah, actually, the main problem here is that the person getting raped is the one you actually don't get any backstory on at all. They don't even mention the fact that she's a monk. Like, we have to assume it based on her clothing, and later on we see her fighting style. Oh, okay, she's a hand-to-hand monk type. Like, that... I will agree insofar to that.
So I'm just going to see what this next part presents me.
Now, this level of characterization doesn't really justify how gratuitous the anime or manga are, but it's perfectly appropriate for the way the novel handles the scene.
Yeah, he mentions the manga there, and in the manga, technically the rape is worse, because you even do get to see the naked tits of the monk girl. So I'd say it's, if you're talking about sexualization, the manga technically does it worse, even though it explains their character better going into it.
Which leads us to the bigger problem with the anime, the way that it sexualizes this violence.
Yep. Now apparently we're sexualizing the rape.
Yeah, and here the problem is because he mentions, oh, you're not actually going to show any of those scenes with the actual rape going on. Necro, he cuts out the entire part where Jeff goes into detail as to why he thinks the rape was done badly. The problem is, he's going into it from the standpoint that it should be portrayed as if it was a horror movie, where you only see like little bits and pieces to kind of, you know, make you imagine it instead of actually seeing it. But now, okay, I'm just gonna give my opinion on the actual rape scene because he's not gonna show it, so I can give it through that. I think it's actually a good thing that they show the entire thing, that they show her entire body, because the point is that it's supposed to be disturbing. I don't think it's sexualized because, I mean, yeah, sure, it is kinda shown in the same way that a rape scene would be in a hentai, but again, me personally, I still think that's fucked up, and I don't watch rape hentai because I just don't like rape in my porn. It's just not a turn on for me. So to me, it's still disturbing. I still don't like to see it, and I hate the goblins even more for having watched that scene. And also, Jeff, he mentions that, oh, there's no reason for the goblins to be, like, spread around her in order to show her off. Well, yes. We're supposed to watch how she's getting demeaned. Again, to make us hate the goblins even more. And this is a slight spoiler for what happens later, from what I've heard in the manga, or also in the light novel, that we find out that the goblins actually do take some pleasure in the torture they do, and in, you know, tormenting their rape victims. They do enjoy that, so that there's further reason to hate them. But yeah, that's basically what it is. And yeah, you could say it's not explained here, but it's retroactively made better by the fact that it's explained later in the same story. But then again, we don't know right now if they will actually explain that in the anime, so that's a bit of a tough one. But yeah.
Apparently the rape in that scene was just so sexy for us, guys. I can't. I'm not going to give you a full video. If I can't even give the anime man a full video and he's stupid, I'm definitely not giving you the time of day. And you spent God knows how long and you didn't even make the video with any good faith whatsoever.
He made it with plenty of good faith. He mentioned several times that the story as a whole isn't bad, it's just that one scene.
Look, I'm perfectly fine with Goblin Slayer not being everyone's cup of tea. People don't like it for various reasons, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But if you're going out of your way, like Mother's Basement, to make a video not explaining any of your points validly...
He does explain them validly. You just refuse to... what the fuck is the word? This is the problem with not having English as your first language, I guess. What's the word? You refuse to... acknowledge! You refuse to acknowledge his points as being valid. But they are. Again, I don't necessarily fully agree with them, but he does make valid points. Or I don't fully agree with all of them. I do agree with some of them.
And saying, well, this scene doesn't do it right, but this other anime, yeah, that one does the rape perfectly. Even though that there's no rape in any of the anime that he's ever brought up, then how in the world does this strengthen his argument? Everyone is so worried about one show and how it portrays a certain scene that not everybody is going to agree with. I don't understand why we all just either can watch a show or just can't watch it. I'm sure this is a great litmus test for a lot of people to find out how smart they really are. Mother's Basement wanted to spurg out on Twitter and say how bad that this show was when it first came out. Now he's kind of changed his mind a little bit, but he still says that you're an idiot if you still watch it.
No! Pedantic Romantic, she said that you were an idiot if you liked the show. I mean, yeah, she mentions it in the end of her video, like, oh, if you like it, that's fine, but she did it in a very hostile way still. She still had that tinge of, oh, you're still an idiot if you watch it. But if you watch it, it's totally okay, but you're still an idiot. Jeff doesn't do that at all. Like, he even addresses the fans several times, and it's like, well, if you like it, that's fine, and if you like it, you should want it to have its anime adaptation done better. What is so difficult to understand with that?
Here, you know what? Let me just bring that video back. Can I bring it back, that video?
For the rest of you out there, the hardcore Goblin Slayer fans who just want to see the community around the series grow, want it to be recognized for its better qualities, and want it to make a lot of money so that more of the series gets adapted and more shows like it get made, please, don't let defending this one scene be the hill that you die on.
And why would that be?
Yeah. I mean, he's technically right. Because as I said, I know I'm reiterating a lot of points and this video has gone on for way too long. But, gotta say it again, I still think the scene was fine. But it could have been better. I will agree, it could have been better. It could have done it better. And I don't doubt that some people think that it was done really badly. Obviously there were, but just...
Mother's Basement.
Instead of acting like nothing's wrong with it or like people are wrong to be upset about it, acknowledge that it's a bad first episode, or at least a potentially offensive one, and try to draw people's attention to the parts of the series that you think they'll actually like.
But there isn't anything wrong with it. And if it is potentially offensive to some people, I can't speak for everybody. I can't speak for the people that watch my videos and find me to be an absolute idiot.
Usually, I find you to be okay. Not too bad. But, yeah, no. I would probably go with the idiot. We're calling you an idiot for this video. Gotta admit. Usually, I mostly agree with you, but no, this one I can't.
I mean, I probably could. I mean, they probably think that anyways, but all I'm saying is I can't generalize everything for everybody, and I can't tell them what's offensive to them. If they don't like something, I can't tell them to watch it or don't watch it.
Yeah.
That's stupid, and you're stupid for thinking that. And if no one can get past the first episode, that's not my problem. That's more like theirs. All I'm saying is enjoy what you want to enjoy, and if people don't like the first episode, just because I find it to be a good first episode doesn't mean that everybody else in the mother has to.
Exactly! So what is your problem here?
All I'm saying is, I made this video because I was getting really, really good responses from people in the community tab, where I posted a thing about how I didn't want to do anything about Goblin Slayer because I just thought it was a dead topic at this point. I really don't want to do any more Goblin Slayer videos, but even when I was on Discord or on Twitter, people were still sending me this video. So I figured I might as well just do it as kind of like a last hurrah, you know, to talk shit about Mother's Basement for just a little while longer. Now, obviously, there's more in that video, and of course I'll always leave the original video linked in the description, but I just don't know how much more of that retardation I can actually take. If you guys really want to just cringe over something, or, I don't know, have a good laugh, then most certainly go to that video. I mean, always be outspoken, and if there's any more videos that you want to suggest that aren't stupid like this one, then please put them in my inbox, and I'll consider it.
Also, I know now I'm getting like really off topic and it's weird and probably just stupid insults, but I'm getting really annoyed with the fact that it looks like, you know, there's a pretty big boob on the avatar here, but it looks like there isn't anything here because the shading isn't done very well. And it looks like the finger here is a lot longer than these other fingers. And usually these fingers are supposed to be longer, or at least the middle finger is supposed to be longer than the index finger. And it's just been bothering me this entire video. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be like an art expert or anything, but it's just been bothering me. Okay, I'm gonna take this off, because fuck me, and my hair looks terrible. Ugh. Okay, just fixing this up quick. Whew. Okay, so we made it through that, and yeah, there were points I agreed with, points I didn't agree with, as you obviously could see, but yeah, it's I guess I'm with this video. If you watched my other Goblin Slayer video, I am showing how much of a radical centrist I am. How enlightened I am by saying both sides are wrong. But, no, yeah, I guess there's not that much more to reiterate on. Like I've already said, I like the show, but I also agree it could have been done better. Okay, I'm talking very loudly now, aren't I? It could have been done better, the first episode. Like, we could have... Like, I think ultimately, I think the wizard girl and the fighter guy, they had enough backstory told. Like, they were never supposed to be, like, you know, well-established characters. They were just supposed to be cannon fodder to show the fact that even though you potentially could have a great future ahead of you, if you're an idiot in this world, you will die. Also, if you continually roll ones on your d20, but that's a completely different point. But yeah, that's the main point here. And if you actually made it all the way through this video, then thank you. I'm very thankful that you actually watched all of this, because holy shit did I ramble on. But yeah, tell me in the comments whether you liked it or not, or upvote or downvote or whatever. And I will... and also, if you have any suggestions as to other videos I could maybe talk about, do tell me. And I will certainly consider it. And I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye-bye.